In this video, we'll discuss the basic rules of composition, covering aspect ratio, the rule of thirds, framing, balance, leading lines, and depth of field. Your frame is your canvas. Your goal is to fill it with things that are useful to your story and arrange them in a way that is pleasing to the viewer. By the end of this video, you'll have learned what makes a good shot and how to achieve one yourself. Composition is the art of arranging objects in a frame. They're actually shapes and alignments that people find pleasing, but movie composition also needs to tell a story. The arrangement of your objects and actors in a frame can add to your storytelling by emphasizing some elements and de-emphasizing others. In a big-budget Hollywood film, the director has the expert input of the director of photography. In smaller budget movies, the director often does double duty. When speaking on filmmaking, Alexander McKendrick, teacher of filmmaking at Cal Arts, says framing and editing determine the eye path of the viewer. It might not be too much to say that what a film director really directs is his audience's attention. If you're doing everything right, every frame of your movie should be able to be plucked out at random, stuck in a frame, and hung on a gallery wall. This is a tall order, and few people succeed in it without lots of time, big budgets, great editors, and patient investors. Your budget and timeline may keep you from doing this, but there are things you can do from the very beginning to make sure that your movie looks as good as it can. Pictures are pictures regardless of how many you shoot. The rules of composition are the same for video as they are for photos. However, like everything else, it's complicated. To understand the basics of composition, we need to start out with aspect ratio. Put simply, aspect ratio is the ratio of horizontal to vertical dimensions of an image. The aspect ratio of 35mm film is 3:2, which is why photo prints are 6:4 inches. The aspect ratio of most video is 16:9. A 16:9 frame means that landscapes look fantastic, but putting a single person in the frame is more challenging. For the most part, people are vertical objects, and most of your frame is going to be empty. So what do you fill the empty space with? That's composition. One other obvious thing that affects composition of a movie frame is the fact that things are moving in and sometimes moving through it, and often your camera frame itself is moving. This is why filmmakers need lots of rehearsal. Actors moving through a frame have to hit their marks at extremely predictable times, and your camera operator needs to accommodate motion through the frame and motion of the frame, all while keeping pleasing arrangement that drives the story. All that said, can you get a book about still image composition and use it as the basis of your movie composition? Well, absolutely. The rules of composition hold true for film, painting, and still images alike. That moves us on to the rule of thirds. If you leave here with one thing, it should be the rule of thirds. It's the fundamental rule of composition. Divide the screen into thirds with 4 lines. Like a tic-tac-toe game, your objects of interest should fall at the intersection of 2 of these lines. Some cinematographers are more rigid about it than others, but it's very possible to find a movie whose every shot does not deviate from this. We mentioned before that people are vertical and movie screens are horizontal. This means that to get a person in a frame, you need to either make them very small or crop them. Both of these are perfectly acceptable. Let's take a look at Ridley Scott's Blade Runner. In this close-up of Harrison Ford, Scott and his cinematographer have chosen to chop him off at the shoulders and the top of the head to put his eyes at the intersection of the top horizontal line and the right vertical line.